I thought my roommate's boyfriend was just a freeloader who used my shampoo and never bought toilet paper. Then I found out why he showered so much, and it changed everything. My name is not important, but I'm a 21-year-old woman living in a two-bedroom flat with my roommate. Let's call her Sarah. She's 22. We've lived together for just over a year, and up until recently it was fine. We split rent and bills evenly. We weren't best friends, but we respected each other's space. I'm a pretty easygoing person. I don't mind if someone uses a little ketchup or borrows a dish, but this was something else. About 6 months ago, Sarah started dating this guy. He was 24. At first, he came over once or twice a week. Then it became every night. Then he started staying for full weeks at a time. He slept over 5 or 6 nights a week, sometimes 7. He wasn't on the lease. He didn't pay rent. He never bought groceries or contributed to bills. He didn't even buy his own snacks. Nothing. I didn't want to start drama, so I kept my mouth shut. I figured it was her relationship and maybe it would fizzle out, but it didn't. The thing that really started getting under my skin was the showering. He showered constantly. At least twice a day, sometimes more. I'm not talking about quick rinses, long hot showers that used up all the hot water. And every single time he used my stuff, my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed, it wasn't subtle. The bottles would be moved, the razor would be wet. I didn't say anything the first few times because I thought maybe Sarah let him borrow something once. But it kept happening. I bought new shampoo and put it in my room. The next morning, it was in the shower, half empty. He must have gone into my room while I was at work. I started carrying my toiletries back and forth every time I showered. It was ridiculous. I felt like I was in a dorm again, guarding my stuff like a hawk. I finally brought it up to Sarah. I tried to be chill about it. I said, hey, your boyfriend has been using my shampoo and stuff. Could you ask him to stop or maybe buy his own? She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. That was it. She didn't do anything, so I became more direct. About a week later, I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute, and uses my personal items. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own stuff or chipped in for the water bill. She got defensive. She said I was being controlling and that I didn't understand their relationship. I told her it wasn't about their relationship, it was about basic respect. She stormed off. That night when her boyfriend came over, I could hear them talking in her room. I didn't eavesdrop, but the walls are thin. I heard her say, she's just jealous or something. He laughed. I felt my face get hot. I wasn't jealous. I was annoyed that I was paying for his hygiene products. The weird behavior escalated. He started getting deliveries. Packages would show up at the door addressed to him, even though he didn't live there. He'd grab them quickly and take them straight to Sarah's room. Sometimes I'd see him on the balcony on his phone, pacing. He seemed nervous. I started noticing a smell, not like weed, but something chemical. I didn't think much of it at first. I just thought he had bad cologne. Then I noticed the razor. He was using my razor. I know that sounds small, but using someone else's razor is disgusting. You can get infections. I snapped. I went to Sarah and told her that her boyfriend needed to stop using my stuff, especially my razor. She said, he probably just needed to shave. It's not a big deal. I said, it is a big deal. It's unhygienic and it's disrespectful. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting. I told her if it happened again, I'd talk to the landlord about an unauthorized occupant. She got really quiet. Then she said, you wouldn't. I said, try me. The next morning, I heard her boyfriend leave early. I went into the bathroom and found my razor in the shower with hair on it. He had used it again. That was the moment I decided I was done being nice. I went to her room and knocked. No answer. I opened the door. She wasn't there, but her room was a mess. Clothes everywhere, and in the corner a bunch of those packages. Some were opened. I saw little plastic bags and a scale. My stomach dropped. I'm not naive. I know what a scale and little bags mean. I backed out of the room and closed the door. My hands were shaking. I called my mom. She said to call the police. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to live with a drug dealer. I called the non-emergency line and told them I suspected drug activity in my apartment. I didn't give a lot of details. I just said my roommate's boyfriend might be selling something. 2 days later, I was at work when I got a text from Sarah. She said, the cops came, they searched our place, they took him. I can't believe you did this. I didn't respond. I came home that evening and the door was unlocked. The apartment was trashed. Drawers were pulled out. My room had been gone through. My laptop was gone, so was my jewelry box. I called 911 immediately. The police came and took a report. They said they found methamphetamine and a gun in Sarah's room. Her boyfriend was being charged with possession with intent to distribute and unlawful possession of a firearm. Sarah wasn't arrested, but she was questioned. She came back to the apartment later that night and started screaming at me. She said I ruined her life, that her boyfriend was trying to get clean, that I had no right. I told her he was dealing drugs from our apartment and using my razor. She said, you don't understand, he needed money to get out of debt. I said, that's not my problem. I gave notice to the landlord and moved in with my parents. I haven't spoken to Sarah since. I heard from a mutual friend that she lost her job because of the police visit and she's moving back in with her parents. Her boyfriend is out on bail. I have a restraining order. It's been a month. I still feel like I dodged a bullet, but sometimes I wonder if I overreacted. I mean, he was just using my shampoo, right? No, he was a drug dealer, and my roommate enabled it. I don't think I was the asshole, but I still think about that razor. It creeped me out more than anything else. But that wasn't the only nightmare I've lived through. Let me tell you about my husband. I never thought I'd catch him cheating on me with his ex-wife, but I did, and it was worse than you can imagine. I'm 27, a guy. My husband, Peter, is 37. We've been married 3 years, together for 6. We adopted a son, Jack, who's 7 now. I love that kid like my own blood. I knew Peter was bisexual before we got married. I had zero problem with it. I also knew about his ex-wife, Allison. She's 37 too. They divorced about a year before we met. I thought it was all in the past, but his family never let it go. They're a bit homophobic, okay, a lot homophobic. They were always telling Peter he should get back with Allison. I brushed it off. I thought Peter loved me. I was wrong. 2 weeks before I wrote this, it was Jack's birthday. We drove to Peter's hometown to celebrate with his family. Jack was so excited. He wanted a cake with dinosaurs and to play with his cousins. I was nervous about the in-laws, but I wanted Jack to have a good time. The party was at Peter's mom's house. Big backyard, lots of kids running around. I stayed by Jack the whole time. I made sure he had juice and that his cousins weren't being too rough. Around 4 o'clock, his mom called everyone to the backyard for cake. I looked around for Peter and Allison. Yes, she was there. My mother-in-law had invited her without telling me. She just showed up in the middle of the party. I didn't want to ruin Jack's day, so I kept my mouth shut. I figured I'd deal with it later. But when it was time to cut the cake, I noticed Peter and Allison were gone. I asked my mother-in-law where they were. She shrugged and said, probably inside. I felt a knot in my stomach. I went into the house. I checked the living room, the kitchen, even the bathroom, empty. Then I went upstairs. Peter's old bedroom was at the end of the hall. The door was cracked. I pushed it open. They were half undressed. Peter had his shirt off. Allison was unbuttoning her blouse. They froze when they saw me. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned around and walked back to the party. I didn't want to make Jack's birthday about me. I went outside, smiled, and helped cut the cake. Jack was so happy, he didn't notice anything. I kept it together. An hour later, people were starting to leave. That's when Peter and Allison came back outside, acting like nothing happened. Peter came up to me and pulled me aside. He said, "Why did you cut the cake without me? That was disrespectful." I stared at him. I said very calmly, "I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." His face went white. He didn't say a word. I walked away, picked up Jack, and left. I drove back to the hotel. I put Jack to bed, then I sat in the bathroom and cried into a towel so he wouldn't hear. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. Peter tried to call me 17 times. I didn't answer. He texted, "It's not what you think." She was upset and we just hugged. I typed back, "I saw you taking your clothes off. Don't lie to me." He didn't reply. I moved out of our house and into a friend's spare room. I took Jack with me. Peter didn't fight it. He knew he was wrong. I filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. That's when things got really ugly. His family started calling me. His mom left a voicemail saying I was overreacting, that Allison was just comforting Peter because he was stressed. I deleted it. Then my own mom called, said I should forgive him because people make mistakes. I told her I saw them. She got quiet. The update came about a month later. I was still going through the divorce process when I found out Allison was pregnant. She was 12 weeks along. Peter was the father. He had been sleeping with her for months. The affair wasn't just that one time at the party. It had been going on since before Jack's birthday. I felt sick. I confronted Peter during one of the mediation sessions. He admitted it. He said he got confused and that Allison reminded him of his old life. He said he still loved me. I told him I didn't care. I wanted the divorce finalized and full custody of Jack. Jack isn't biologically his, but we adopted him together. I was worried the court would side with Peter, but Peter agreed to let me have primary custody if I didn't go after him for alimony. I took the deal. Now Jack and I live in a small apartment. He's in therapy. I'm in therapy. Peter is with Allison again, supposedly. His family has disowned me. I don't care. I lost 14 years of my life to that man, 14 years of lies. I still can't believe his mother thought I was the problem. She called Jack a distraction and said I was just a side piece. I heard that from a mutual friend. I don't even know what to say to that. Some people are just evil. I'm not the asshole. I know that now. But it took a long time to believe it. I'm not the asshole. I know that now. But it took a long time to believe it. Every time I think about that day, about standing in that bedroom doorway watching my husband with his ex-wife, I feel that same hollow punch in my chest. I still have nightmares about it. Jack asks about Peter sometimes. He says, "Why does Daddy live with us anymore?" I tell him that Daddy made some bad choices and he needs to think about what he did. Jack doesn't cry. He just nods. He's 7. He shouldn't have to understand this. I gave Peter everything. I moved cities for him. I left my job, my friends, my whole support system. I thought we were building a life. I even helped him through his own family drama when they refused to accept me. His mom used to call me the roommate to her friends. I heard her say it once on the phone. Peter laughed it off. He said she'd come around. She never did. After the divorce, I found out more. Allison wasn't just a fling. She had been in contact with Peter for 2 years before I caught them. They met up at least once a month. She would drive to our city and stay in a hotel. Peter would tell me he had late meetings or that he was helping a friend move. I believed him. I never checked his phone. I thought I didn't need to. That's the part that haunts me most. Not the betrayal itself, but the fact that I trusted him so completely while he was living a whole second life. I don't think I'll ever trust anyone again, not fully. I'm in therapy and my therapist says that's a normal reaction, but I can't help feeling like I'm broken. Jack is the only thing keeping me going. I wake up every morning and make him pancakes. I pack his lunch. I take him to school. I pick him up. I read him stories. I try to be the parent I needed when everything fell apart. But I still think about that razor, that stupid razor. It's funny how the smallest things can break you. I used to think the worst thing that could happen in my life was financial debt or a messy breakup. But then I found out my roommate's boyfriend was a drug dealer using my shampoo, and my husband was knocking up his ex-wife behind my back. Some people live whole lives without ever seeing the ugly side of people. I've seen it twice before I turned 30. I don't tell this story to get sympathy. I tell it because I want other people to know what it looks like. The warning signs are never obvious. They're small. A missing razor, a misplaced shampoo bottle. A text that doesn't feel quite right. A family member showing up uninvited. A bedroom door that's cracked open when it shouldn't be. Pay attention to those small things. They're not small, they're the beginning of something worse. Now I want to tell you about my sister-in-law. That one is a different kind of crazy. It involves a proposal I never asked for and a family that wanted to destroy me. My name is something doesn't matter. I'm 27, a woman. My fiancé is George, he's 30. My brother is David, he's married to Ella. Ella is my sister-in-law, but here's the twist. George used to date Ella. They were together for 6 months about 4 years ago. Ella wanted the white picket fence, the ring, the kids. George wasn't there yet. He was partying, doing drugs, being a mess. She couldn't make him settle down, so she bounced. Then she met my brother David. They got married less than a year later. So in the span of about a year and a few months, Ella went from dating George to breaking up to marrying my brother. That should have been the first red flag, but I didn't know any of this at the time. I met George 2 years ago. I had no idea he was Ella's ex. He was just this guy I met at a coffee shop. We started talking. He was funny, serious, but also broken in a way I could see he wanted to fix. He told me early on that he had a past. He said he quit drinking and stopped doing drugs. He said he was in therapy. He said he wanted to change. I believed him because I saw it. He was different. He started cooking meals from scratch. He went to bed at a reasonable hour. He kept a journal. He was trying so hard to be someone good. Our relationship grew naturally. We took it slow. I met his friends, I met his family, everything was good. Then I found out he used to date Ella, my brother's wife, my sister-in-law. I was horrified. I thought for sure this was going to destroy my family, but David and I talked. He said he knew about their past. He said he didn't care. He said George was a different person now. He was happy for me. I was relieved until Ella found out. She lost it, absolutely lost it. She started spreading rumors that George was grooming me. I was 25 when we got together. He was 36. That's not grooming. That's two consenting adults with a 10-year age gap. She didn't care. She said George was going to turn me into a drug addict. She said he was controlling and abusive. She said I was in danger. None of it was true. George had been sober for over a year by then. He had a good job. He paid his bills. He was kind. He never raised his voice at me, but Ella didn't want the truth. She wanted revenge. She went to my parents. She told them George was a manipulator. My parents believed her. They had seen George when he was at his worst before he quit. They didn't trust the change. They banned him from family events. I started spending holidays alone with George. My mom cried on the phone and said I was making a mistake. I held my ground, then George proposed. He did it at a small restaurant, just the two of us. He got down on one knee and said he wanted to spend the rest of his life making me happy. I said yes. I called my brother first. He was happy. Then I called my mom. She was cold. She said, "Are you sure?" I said yes. She hung up. Ella found out about the proposal through David. She went ballistic. She called me and left a voicemail screaming that I stole her life, that George was hers first, that I was a homewrecker. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. Then she started posting on social media. She said I was a gold digger. She said George never really changed and that I was going to regret it. She tagged my family. My mom called me again and asked if I was sure I knew what I was doing. I had enough. I wrote a long message to my family. I told them everything. The lies, the rumors, the constant harassment. I told them I was done trying to keep the peace. I said if they couldn't support my relationship, they could stay out of my life. My dad called me the next day. He said he didn't know Ella was that bad. He said he would talk to my brother. David confronted Ella. She denied everything. She said I was the one making things up. But David had seen the voicemails. He had seen the social media posts. He told her to stop or they were done. She didn't stop. She doubled down. She told my brother I was trying to seduce her friends. I have never spoken to her friends. I don't know them. David finally had enough. He told Ella to leave. He said they were getting a divorce. She lost it again. She showed up at my apartment at midnight, pounding on the door. George called the cops. She was arrested for trespassing. My parents finally saw it. They saw the police report. They saw the voicemails. They apologized to me. They said they were wrong. My mom cried. David's divorce was ugly. Ella tried to take him for everything. She failed. She moved back to her hometown. I haven't seen her since. My family is back together. George and I set a date. We're getting married next June. The proposal thing was never about me. It was about her ego. She couldn't stand that George changed for me and not for her. She couldn't stand that he was happy. She wanted to drag him down, but she couldn't, and now she's gone. I still get anxious sometimes. I check George's phone. He knows. He hands it to me without a fight. I'm working on it. But after what I went through with my husband, I don't trust easy. George is patient. He holds my hand when I have bad days. He tells me he loves me even when I'm a mess. I think that's the difference. When someone really loves you, they don't hide. They don't lie. They don't make you feel crazy for asking questions. They just show up every day. I'm learning to believe that again, slowly, but it's happening. But that's not the only story I need to tell you. There's one more. It's about a shampoo bottle and a razor, and how a seemingly small annoyance nearly cost me my safety. I'm 21, female. I live in a two-bedroom flat with my roommate, also 22. We've lived together for a little over a year. It was fine at first. We split rent and bills evenly. We were friendly but not super close. We respected each other's space. That was the key, respect. About 6 months ago, she started dating this guy. Let's call him Mike. He's 24. At first, he was around once or twice a week. That was fine. I didn't think much of it, but then it became constant. He slept over 5 to 6 nights a week, sometimes full weeks in a row. He wasn't on the lease. He didn't pay rent. He didn't bring groceries. He didn't contribute anything at all, nothing. I never said much because I get it. She's my roommate and she's happy. I didn't want to start drama. But then I noticed the shower thing. He showered all the time. Twice a day minimum, sometimes more. And every single time he used my stuff, my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I didn't say anything the first few times because I thought maybe she let him borrow something once, but it was ongoing. I started moving all my toiletries into my room and carrying them back and forth like I was at a summer camp. I brought it up to my roommate a while ago. I said, "Hey, has Mike been using my stuff?" She just said, "Oh, he probably didn't realize." And she didn't do anything about it. I let it go. But last week, I finally said something more direct. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he didn't contribute anything and he used my stuff. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own shampoo or chipped in somehow. She got super defensive. She said I was being controlling. She said I was trying to ban her boyfriend from the apartment. I said no, I just want him to be respectful. She said he was respectful. I said using my razor is not respectful. She rolled her eyes and walked away. I started locking my bedroom door when I left. I kept my bathroom stuff in a small caddy and took it with me every time I used the shower. It was exhausting, but I figured that was the price of peace. Then things got weird. I noticed Mike would come home at odd hours. He'd leave at like 2 in the morning and come back at 4. He'd be covered in sweat. He'd go straight to the shower. Sometimes he'd be in there for an hour. I could hear the water running. I could hear him moving around. It didn't sound like normal showering. It sounded like he was cleaning something. I started paying attention. He always walked with his hands in his pockets. He never left his bag in the living room. He kept it in the bedroom with my roommate. When I asked my roommate about his schedule, she said he worked night shifts at a warehouse, but I looked up the warehouse. It was closed on the nights he was leaving. I started to get worried, not angry, worried. One night I was coming back from a late class. It was around 11. I saw Mike in the alley behind our building. He was talking to someone in a car. I couldn't see the person, but I saw Mike hand something over. And then he took something back. I couldn't see what it was. But my stomach dropped. I went inside. I locked my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. The next morning I told my roommate I wanted to talk. I said I was concerned about Mike. I said I saw him in the alley. She got defensive again. She said I was being paranoid. She said he was just hanging out with a friend. I said it was late at night in an alley. She said, "You don't know him like I do." That was when I decided I had to know. I waited until they were both out. Mike had left his bag in the living room. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, I know, but I was scared. I opened the bag. Inside were small baggies, white powder, a scale, and a razor blade. My hands were shaking. I took a photo. I put everything back exactly as it was. I sat on the couch for an hour staring at the wall. I called my mom. She told me to call the police, but I didn't want to escalate. Not yet. I wanted to talk to my roommate first. When she got home, I asked her to come into my room. I closed the door. I showed her the photo. She stared at it. Her face went pale. She said, "I didn't know." She said, "I swear I didn't know." I believed her. But I also knew that she had chosen to ignore every red flag. I told her he couldn't stay here anymore. Not one more night. She cried. She said she loved him. I said, "He's using your apartment to deal drugs. He's using my razor." "That's not love," she called him. He came over. I heard them arguing in the bedroom. I heard him yelling at her. I heard her crying. Then I heard a crash. I ran to the door and asked if she was okay. She opened the door. Her face was red. She said he left. I called the police. They came. I showed them the photo. They searched the living room, but he had taken the bag. They said they couldn't do much without evidence. But they noted the report. They told my roommate she should change the locks. I called the landlord the next morning. I explained the situation. He was understanding. He said he would support us breaking the lease if needed. My roommate called her parents. They came and helped her move out that weekend. Mike never came back. I don't know where he went. I don't want to know. I live alone now. I changed the locks. I bought new shampoo. I bought a new razor. Every time I shower, I look at the door. I make sure it's locked. I don't trust anyone with my stuff anymore. I don't trust anyone with my space. I still think about that razor. The one he used, I don't know what he did with it. I don't want to know. I threw it away the same night. I don't use shared razors. I don't borrow things. I don't let people stay overnight without asking. I'm not paranoid. I'm just careful. My roommate and I don't talk anymore. She sent me a text a few weeks ago. She said she's in therapy. She said she's sorry. I said I was sorry too, but I can't live with her again. That part of my life is over. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I didn't check his bag, if I just let it go. If I kept moving my shampoo bottle back and forth like a fool. I would have never known. I would have kept sharing a bathroom with a drug dealer. I would have kept using a razor that he touched. I would have stayed in that apartment sleeping 3 feet away from someone who was selling poison, but I checked, and I got out. I'm telling you this because sometimes the little things matter. The shower that runs too long, the bag you never see, the smell you can't place. Trust your gut. It's not paranoia, it's survival. I'm safe now. I have a new apartment. I have a job. I have a cat. I don't have drama. I don't have a roommate. I have peace. And I never lend my razor to anyone ever again. That was one kind of betrayal. But some betrayals cut deeper, especially when they come from the person you trust most. I'm 27 male, my husband Peter is 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. He has an ex-wife Allison, same age as him. They divorced a year before we met. We have a son Jack who is 7. We adopted him after we got married. I love him like my own because he is mine. He's my son. I knew Peter was bisexual. I never had a problem with it. I never had a problem with Allison either, at least not until everything went down. The problem was his family. They're homophobic. They're always telling Peter he should get back with Allison. They never accepted our marriage. They never called me his husband, just his friend in front of Jack. I tolerated it because Peter said he wanted to keep the peace. I tolerated it because Jack loved his grandparents. 2 weeks ago, it was Jack's birthday. We went to Peter's hometown to celebrate with his family. I didn't want to go, but Peter insisted. He said his mom wanted to throw a party. I said, fine, we'll go for the day. We got there in the morning. The house was full of cousins, aunts, uncles. I was nervous, but I smiled. Helped set up the cake. I played with Jack and his cousins. It was a good day. Then my mother-in-law decided it would be a good idea to invite Allison. She showed up in the middle of the party. I saw her walk in. I looked at Peter. He looked at the floor. He didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I stayed quiet. I spent all my time with Jack. We played tag. We opened presents. I kept my eyes on my son. Then it was time to cut the cake. I looked around for Peter. He wasn't there, neither was Allison. I told Jack to stay with his cousins for a minute. I went inside. The house was big. I checked the kitchen, the living room, the back porch, nothing. Then I went upstairs. I heard a door. It was Peter's old bedroom, the one he grew up in. I opened the door. I saw them. They were taking their clothes off. Peter was shirtless. Allison was unbuttoning her jeans. They were kissing. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. They were about to have sex in his childhood bedroom at our son's birthday party. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, then I closed the door. I walked back downstairs. I went to the cake. I cut it myself. I handed out slices. I smiled at Jack. I laughed at the cousins. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry, but I refused to make Jack's birthday about me. 30 minutes later, people were leaving. Allison and Peter came down. They looked normal, like nothing happened. Peter pulled me aside. He said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me. It was disrespectful." I stared at him. I said, "I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." His face went white. He didn't say anything. I took Jack and left. I drove back to the hotel. I put Jack to bed. Then I sat on the floor of the bathroom and cried. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just cried. The next morning, Peter came to the hotel. He knocked on the door. I opened it. He started talking. He said it was a mistake. He said Allison came on to him. He said he didn't know what he was doing. He said he loved me. I said, "You love me. You were about to have sex with your ex-wife at our son's birthday party. You didn't even close the door." He didn't have an answer. I told him I was going back home with Jack. I said I needed space. He said he'd come with us. I said no. I drove home. Jack asked where Daddy was. I said he had to stay for work. A week passed. I didn't answer Peter's calls. I only answered texts about Jack. He said he was sorry. He said he'd do anything. I said I needed time. Then I started looking into Allison. I knew she was obsessed with Peter. I knew she always wanted him back. But I didn't know how far she would go. I found her Facebook. I found old posts. She had been posting about him for years. She wrote about missing him. She wrote about how they belonged together. She wrote about how I was just a phase. I scrolled back. The post went back to before we got married. Then I found something new, a post from 3 days ago. It said, "He came back to me finally, the real woman one." I took a screenshot. I sent it to Peter. He called me immediately. He said, "I didn't know she posted that." I said, "You did know she was at the party. She was in your bedroom. You didn't think she'd tell everyone." He started crying. He said Allison had been texting him for months, telling him she missed him, saying his family missed her, saying his mother wanted them back together. He said he didn't respond at first. Then he did. He said it was just talking, but I knew better. I asked for his phone. He said no. I said, "If you want to save this, you give me your phone." He hesitated. Then he handed it over. I went through his messages. There were hundreds between him and Allison. They started 3 months ago. At first it was innocent. "How are you? I miss the old days." Then it got dirtier. She sent him pictures. He sent her pictures. They talked about meeting up. They talked about the bedroom at his parents' house. I sat on the couch. I scrolled for an hour. I felt my marriage die in my hands. I looked up at him. He was crying. He was saying, I'm sorry, I love you." I said, "You don't love me. You love the idea of having both." I went to the bedroom. I packed a bag for Jack and me. I called my brother. He came and picked us up. I stayed at my brother's house for 2 weeks. I filed for divorce. Peter begged me not to. He said he'd block Allison. He said he'd go to therapy. He said he'd do anything. I said, you already did anything. You did everything. The divorce is going through. I got full custody of Jack. Peter has supervised visitation. He's not allowed to have Allison around Jack. The judge agreed to that. I found out later that Allison had been stalking my social media. She knew everything about me. She knew where I worked, where Jack went to school. She knew our schedules. She had been waiting for a chance. Peter gave it to her. I don't blame her entirely. She's a sad woman, but Peter made a choice. He chose to respond. He chose to meet her. He chose to take his clothes off at our son's birthday party. Jack is doing okay. He asks about his dad. I say we're taking a break. He's too young to understand. I don't tell him the truth. Not yet, I'm doing better. I go to therapy. I talk to friends. I take Jack to the park. I try to move on. It's hard. Every time I see a happy couple, I think about that bedroom. I think about the door I closed, but I'm not broken. I know what I deserve. I deserve someone who doesn't take off their clothes for someone else. I deserve someone who respects our son's birthday. I deserve better than a man who says he loves me but can't stop chasing his past. I'm 27. I have a son. I have a job. I have a life. And I'll be fine. But that wasn't the only time I saw someone I loved get twisted by obsession. A few months earlier, my brother's wife had shown me how far jealousy can go. I'm 27, female. My fiancé, George, is 38. My older brother, David, is married to a woman named Ella, and Ella is George's ex. Let me back up. 4 years ago, George briefly dated Ella. He was a mess back then. Party, drugs, unreliable. They dated for 6 months. Ella wanted marriage and kids. George didn't want that with her. She couldn't make him settle down, so they broke up. Then Ella met my brother. Within 6 months, they got married. It was fast, too fast, but I didn't think much of it. They seemed happy. 2 years ago, I met George at a friend's party. I didn't know he was Ella's ex. We hit it off. He was different, clean, sober. He told me he had changed. He had quit drinking, quit drugs, started therapy. He was a new person. I fell for him. He fell for me. We started dating. When Ella found out, she lost it. She started spreading lies. She said George was grooming me. I was 25, he was 36. That's not grooming. She said he was abusive. She said he was trying to turn me into an addict. All lies. She went to my parents. She told them I was in danger. My mom almost believed her. But then George showed them his AA chips, his therapy receipts, his job promotion. He proved he was changed. Ella didn't stop. She called my work. She said I was stealing company time to be with a drug dealer. I almost got fired. I had to explain everything to my boss. She sent anonymous letters to my neighbors. She said I was running a meth lab with George. The cops showed up. They searched our apartment. They found nothing. They left. She was relentless. Then George proposed to me. He did it on a weekend trip to the mountains. It was beautiful. I said yes. Ella found out. She went ballistic. She posted on social media saying George was still in love with her. She said I was a homewrecker. She said I stole her man. But here's the thing, George never loved her. He told me that. He said she was a mistake. He said he felt trapped with her. With me, he felt free. My brother David tried to stay neutral. He said it was between Ella and me. But then Ella went too far. She called the police. She said George had assaulted her. She claimed it happened a year before they broke up. She had no evidence. The police investigated. They found nothing. But it still caused damage. George was humiliated. He almost broke up with me. He said he didn't want to ruin my life. I said, you're not ruining my life, she is. I went to my brother. I said, David, you need to choose. Either you control your wife or I cut you out. He started crying. He said he didn't know what to do. He said he loved Ella, but she was destroying everything. I gave him an ultimatum. He chose me. He told Ella to stop. She didn't. She doubled down. So David filed for divorce. Ella went crazy. She showed up at my apartment screaming. She threw a rock through our window. The police arrested her. The judge gave her a restraining order. She violated it 3 times. She's in jail now. George and I are getting married in 2 months. David is my best man. We don't talk about Ella. We don't think about her. I still can't believe it. All because she couldn't let go of a man who never wanted her. But I learned something. People show you who they are. When they can't have what they want, they show you their ugly side. I'm grateful for George. I'm grateful for my brother. I'm grateful for the peace. And I never forget to lock my door. I thought I was just being paranoid about my roommate's boyfriend using my shampoo. Turns out I should have been worried about a lot more. I'm 21, female, living in a 2-bedroom flat with a roommate, also female, 22. We'd lived together for a little over a year. It was fine. We split rent and bills evenly. We were friendly but not super close. We respected each other's space. Up until about 6 months ago, it was good. Then she started dating this guy, 24. At first, he was around once or twice a week. Then it became constant. He slept over 5 to 6 nights a week, sometimes full weeks in a row. He wasn't on the lease, didn't pay rent, didn't bring groceries, didn't help with anything, nothing. I never said much because I get it, it's her boyfriend. I didn't want to start drama. But the shower thing got to me. He showered all the time, twice a day minimum, sometimes more. And every single time he used my stuff. My shampoo, conditioner, face wash, razor, deodorant. Yes, I noticed. At first I thought maybe she let him borrow something once. But it kept happening. I moved all my toiletries into my room and carried them back and forth like I was at a summer camp. I brought it up to her. She just went, he probably didn't realize. Didn't do anything about it. Last week I finally said something more direct. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he didn't live here, didn't contribute anything, and used my stuff. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own stuff or chipped in somehow. She got super defensive. She said I was being controlling, that I was trying to tell her who she could have over. I said I wasn't, I just wanted basic respect for my belongings. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing. She said he was just trying to stay clean. I dropped it, but I started watching more closely. He was always whispering on the phone. He'd leave the flat at odd hours, come back looking sweaty, then take a long shower. He lost weight. He had dark circles under his eyes. I thought maybe he was just stressed. Then one day I came home early from work. I walked in and heard a noise from the bathroom. I thought it was my roommate, so I went to the kitchen. Then I saw his bag on the floor open. I didn't mean to snoop, but there was a small plastic baggie half sticking out. I leaned down and looked. It had white powder in it. My heart dropped. I went to my room and locked the door. I didn't know what to do. I called my mom. She said to get out. I called a friend. She said to confront them. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I waited until my roommate was alone. I said, I saw your boyfriend's bag. I know what's in it. She went pale. She said, it's not mine, it's his. He's just holding it for a friend. I said, he's using it. I'm not stupid. She started crying. She said he had a problem. She said he was trying to quit. She said she was helping him. I said, he's using my shampoo while dealing drugs in our apartment. That's not helping, that's enabling. She said I was overreacting. She said I didn't understand. I gave her a week to get him out. She said she would. A week passed. He was still there, still showering. Still whispering on the phone. I told her I was going to the landlord. She said I'd ruin his life. I said he was ruining mine. I talked to the landlord. He said if there were drugs, he'd evict everyone. I said I didn't want that, I just wanted the boyfriend gone. The landlord gave her a warning. She said she'd break up with him. She didn't. Then one night I heard a knock on my door. It was him. He looked terrible. He said, can I borrow some soap? I ran out. I said, no, buy your own. He said, come on, don't be like that. I said, get out of my face. He walked away. I locked my door. The next day I found out why he was so desperate. My roommate texted me saying he'd been arrested. She said the police found him with a large amount of something. She didn't say what. I felt relief, then guilt, then relief again. She moved out 2 weeks later. She said she couldn't live with someone who called the cops on her boyfriend. I said I didn't call the cops. She didn't believe me. I found a new roommate, a quiet guy who works nights. He brings his own soap. I still think about it. I wonder if I should have done more. But I was 21. I was just trying to keep a roof over my head. You learn to trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And I've learned to keep my stuff locked up. I thought I knew my husband. I thought we had something real. But then I found him in his ex-wife's bedroom and everything I believed fell apart. I'm 27 male, my husband Peter is 37, we've been married for 3 years, together for 6. He has an ex-wife Allison, also 37, who he divorced a year before we met. We have a son Jack, now 7. We adopted him right after we got married and I love him like my own because he's my boy. I knew Peter was bisexual, I had no problem with it. I had no problem with Allison either at first. The problem was his family. They're a bit homophobic. They never really accepted our marriage. They're always telling Peter he should get back together with Allison, like our relationship was just a phase. 2 weeks ago, we went to his family's town for Jack's birthday. We wanted to spend it as a family, my in-laws, everyone. My mother-in-law decided it would be a good idea to invite Allison. She didn't tell me. Allison just showed up in the middle of the party. I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I stayed quiet. I spent all my time with Jack, playing with him and his cousins at his request. I made sure he was happy. When it was time to cut the cake, I noticed Allison and Peter weren't there. I went inside and looked for them around the house. I found them in Peter's old bedroom, taking their clothes off. I stood there in shock for a moment. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just left and went back to celebrating Jack's birthday. Part of me wanted to break down, but I was in shock. I refused to make Jack's birthday about me. We cut the cake, opened presents. People were already leaving when Allison and Peter came back. Peter took me aside and started saying I shouldn't have cut the cake without him present. He said it was disrespectful. I stared at him and just said, I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants. He got quiet. I took Jack and left the house. I went back to the hotel. Once I put Jack in bed, I texted Peter and said, we're done, I'm not coming back. That was when everything changed. Peter started calling me nonstop. I ignored him. The next morning, I took Jack and drove back to our city 4 hours away. I didn't tell Peter. I packed a bag at home, took Jack to my mom's and stayed there. Peter called my mom. He begged her to put me on the phone. I eventually answered. He said it was a mistake that Allison came onto him, that he was weak. I said, you're a grown man, you made a choice. He said he wanted to work it out. He said he loved me. He said Jack needed a father. I said Jack needs a father who respects his husband. We went to couples counseling. He cried. He said he'd cut off his family. I said you should have done that before you cheated. But I agreed to try, for Jack. For the life we built, then the text started. Allison sent me messages. She said Peter was still in love with her. She said he kissed her first. She said they'd been talking for months. I confronted him. He denied it. I showed him the texts. He said she was lying. He said she was obsessed. Then I found out something worse. Peter's sister told me that Allison had been stalking him for years. She had a restraining order. No, wait. I dug deeper. I called one of Peter's old friends. He told me the real reason Peter divorced Allison. It wasn't just incompatibility. It was because she was 14 when they met and Peter was 23. He didn't tell me because he was ashamed. He said she lied about her age, but that doesn't matter. The police found out. They didn't press charges because she refused to testify, but the divorce was messy. My heart stopped. I thought about Jack. I thought about my son. I thought about the man I married. I called Peter. I said, "You married a child. You divorced her because of statutory rape, and you didn't tell me." He started crying. He said he was young. He was stupid. He didn't know. I said, "You were 23. You knew." I hung up. I filed for divorce the next week. I got full custody of Jack because Peter couldn't afford a fight. He signed everything over. He didn't even try. I still get messages from Allison. She says I stole her life. She says Peter was her soulmate. She says she's going to fight for him. Peter is in therapy. He sends me letters apologizing. I burn them. Jack asks about his dad. I say he's away. I don't know if I'll ever tell him the truth, but I know one thing: I trusted the wrong person. And I will never let anyone hurt my son again. I thought I was overreacting when I found them together. I thought maybe I could forgive. But then I learned the truth about who he was all along. I didn't scream, I didn't even cry, I just walked away, and I never looked back. I never thought I'd be the kind of person whose sister-in-law would try to destroy her life. But here we are. I'm 27, female. My fiancé is George, 38, my brother is David, and my sister-in-law is Ella, 34. This gets messy, so bear with me. George briefly dated Ella 4 years ago. She wanted to get married and have kids, but George didn't want that with her. He was going through a rough patch back then, partying, doing drugs, not the most reliable guy. They dated for 6 months and it ended in drama because Ella couldn't make him settle down. Soon after their breakup, she met my brother David. They got married 6 or 7 months later. Yeah, they moved fast. She went from dating George to dumping him, meeting my brother and marrying him, all in about a year. I met George 2 years ago. At that time, Ella was already married to my brother. I had no idea George was her ex. When George started feeling attracted to me, he completely changed. He quit drinking and doing drugs. He's been sober ever since. He started going to therapy, became a new person. He did it because he wanted to change. I've been with him through his entire healing journey. I'm proud of him. We have a healthy, amazing relationship. But Ella, she was furious when she found out I was dating George. Even though she was already married to my brother, she lost it. She said a lot of nasty lies. She told everyone George was grooming me. I was 25 when we got together. He was 36. That's not grooming, for God's sake. She lied that George was abusing me, trying to turn me into an addict like him. She even claimed he was holding me against my will. I tried to ignore her, but she didn't stop. She texted me, called me, showed up at my parents' house. She told my mom that I was in danger. My mom believed her for a week until I sat her down and explained everything. Then it got worse. George proposed to me 2 months ago. It was beautiful. He got down on one knee in the park where we had our first date. I said yes. We posted it on social media, told our families. Ella snapped. She called me screaming, said I was stealing her life, said George only proposed because he couldn't have her, said I was a homewrecker. I hung up. Then she went to my brother. She told David that George and I had been having an affair while she and George were dating. That was a lie. George and I didn't even know each other back then, but David believed her. He stopped talking to me for a month. I thought I was overreacting when I first saw the hate in her eyes, but then she went after George at work. She called his boss and said George was using drugs again. George lost his job. He was clean for 2 years and she destroyed that. That was when everything changed. I told my parents everything. My mom said, "You have to cut her off." My dad said, "This is going to tear our family apart." But we couldn't let her keep lying. David finally came to me. He said, "I saw her text. She's been sending you threatening messages. I thought she was just jealous, but this is insane." I showed him everything. He cried. He said he'd talk to her. Ella didn't stop. She broke into George's apartment and left a note saying she'd be waiting for him when he came to his senses. George called the police. They took a report. She was arrested for stalking a few days later. My brother filed for divorce. Ella tried to fight it, but between the stalking charges and the lies, she lost. The divorce was finalized last month. Now I'm planning my wedding. George and I set a date for next spring. David is my man of honor. He's still beating himself up for believing her. Ella is out on bail. She's not allowed within 100 feet of me or George. I still get nervous when I see a car that looks like hers, but I'm not letting her win. My brother said I should have seen it. She was obsessed with you from the start. I told him, "It's not your fault. She's sick. I don't know if she'll ever get help, but I know one thing: I trusted my gut when everyone else doubted me, and now I'm marrying the man I love and my brother is finally free of her." Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you most, but you learn to protect yourself. You learn to walk away. I didn't scream when she called me a homewrecker. I didn't cry when she got George fired. I just kept moving forward, and now I'm going to marry the man who changed his whole life for me. That's the ending I choose.